when I talk about the importance of respecting the elders, I'm not, it's I'm trying to focus in on testimonies. And the reason why I'm saying it that way is I'm not talking about respect like yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. The way you may have grown up thinking is respecting the elders. To respect the elders, you have to get to know their testimony. You have to want to hear their testimony. And the elders have to want to share their testimony. It's part of the problem of the descendants of American slave experience in this particular time period that I'm living right now in 2024, 2025. We just transitioned into 2025. Is that a lot of the elders don't want to share their testimony. They want to share their stories about when this, when that, but not their testimonies. I would like to explain the difference to you. I remember when I had this job, and I remember when I had this car, and I remember when I went to this place, and I remember the testimony is how me and my husband and my wife got through this time period of our lives, and this is what we learned from it. These are the people that we met. These are the things that we did. Testimony. Not what kind of car they had, how big their house was, how much money they made. Conversations about how one generation got past or got through one generation to help build you up so that you can get to the next generation or get through the next generation. Testimonies. Hardcore conversations where one generation learns from the next. Sitting around the table, sitting around the fire, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on some sort of basis. We want to hear from the 70 and 80-year-olds and the 90-year-olds, the 100-year-olds. We want to hear from the 50 and 60-year-olds. We want to hear from the people who have already had the experience that we're about to experience. Because we don't think that their experience, I'm not thinking everyone thinks this way, but you don't want to get yourself to a place to say, well, it's different for them than it is for us. It's the same for all of us. What we need to learn is context, environment. And that's on the elders. If the elders have got to be able to explain and want to explain what, the reality of what happened. What they went through from their perspective. Hopefully more so from a God perspective, but at least from their own perspective. And I don't feel like breaking that down, the difference between the two. But I think you get the point. There is no success without my ancestors. Whether their experience was one that they wanted or didn't want, it was their experience. It shows me the right and the wrong moves to make. Either that or I'm going to have to make the right and wrong moves on my own, which I prefer specifically at this stage of my life not to do anymore. I've made a lot of right moves and a ton of bad moves, wrong moves. Which is not bad in the sense that, it did give me some experience to share with my kids. If my kids want to learn from those experiences. See, the lives are meshed together into this one thing we call legacy. If you can learn how to forsake yourself and think about your legacy, I personally think we'll all be better off. Because then it's not about you, it's about your lineage, your legacy. That would be a start in creating a united front in our community. There's been a breakdown. We've been told not to trust each other. And a lot of folks believe that. And I get it, because the more trust I put, I recently had a relationship, a brand new relationship with someone who actually sabotaged me and shut off an opportunity to me. Brand new relationship. But it doesn't stop me from loving and respecting. Because, again, your footsteps are ordered of God to be His example, not to gain or lose anything within your own strength. So thinking someone took something away from you and all this other stuff. No, we're navigating a legacy, a lineage. And the ultimate legacy and lineage is that of God the Father, God the Creator, which is to usher in the kingdom of heaven by living according to His principles and His statutes and His judgments. And again, that may not make sense to all of you, but that is a clear statement. Study to show yourself approved. So what I'm saying is you have to respect the testimonies of your elders. And you have to be able to take their stories and pick out the testimonies. Because some of them, again, want to tell it from their own purview about their cars and their houses. Their stuff, the external. You have to discover and choose to hear the spiritual side of it. That's the testimony. Which means you need to have a relationship with God yourself. Adam, like it or not, had a relationship with God. At a certain point, the relationship with God was no longer, Adam's relationship with God was no longer necessarily the guiding light, because I think it was the sons of men began to hear the voice of the Lord. I think I said that correct. And if I didn't, please correct me, because I'm not going to go backwards right today. So the idea is building up your own relationship and hearing the voice of the Lord yourself, and respecting the voice of the testimonies of the elders. And so what I want to show you in this video, this podcast, to my sons and daughters, to those who consider me a teacher around the world, what I want to show you is the power of the spoken testimony and how deep it really goes, because this perspective I do not believe is ever taught, or not often taught, in churches, what we call churches, or temples, or mosque, or schools of ministry, or schools of theology. And that is that Adam was a very real experience that lasted generations upon generations. And the wisdom coming from Adam in his fallen nature, still housing the spiritual nature, still dealing with the emotional nature, which is now called Eve. I believe he had a large congregation and taught it for years about his experiences, his testimony. And from that, I believe Moses was able to pen these books. Genesis 5, verse 3 says, Adam lived 130 years and begot his own likeness, and begot in his own likeness after his image, and called his name Seth. He was 130 years old when he had Seth. 130 years old. All the days that Adam lived, in verse 5, all the days that Adam lived were 930 years. So there's another 800 years of life that Adam lived. Now, when Seth had his son, Enos, he was 105 years old. If you understand what I'm saying, when Adam was 235 years, his grandson was born. He was 235 years old when Enos was born. If you understand that, Enos had Canaan 90 years later, which means Adam was 395 years old when Canaan was born. Now we're talking about Seth, we're talking about Enos, and we're talking about Canaan. That's three separate. So now we're talking about 4 generations. Adam is still alive. Keep it in mind, Adam also was having sons and daughters as well. After Canaan, you've heard of his son. Well, maybe you didn't. No, that's later on. That's later on. Not this. This is. Starts with an M. And it's hard for me to pronounce, but it's Mahalalel, I believe. Now, Adam at that point was 395 years old. That's 5 generations. Mahalalel had Jared. That was 65 years later. Adam was 460 years old. When Enoch was born, the one that walked with God, Adam was still around. He was 620 years old. And when Enoch had Methuselah, they say was the oldest person ever born. When he had Methuselah, Adam was 685 years old. Now this is the interesting part. Methuselah had Lamech. Adam was coming to the end of his days at 865 years. Lamech had Noah. So what I'm saying is respecting each other's testimony. I'm around people that when I talk, they'll just talk over me. They're not trying to. It's just the nature of our community today. I don't think it has anything to do with me. I don't take it that way. I used to. It is disrespectful, as though my testimony didn't have value. And to them, it doesn't. I'm around people today who I call brother, who look down on me because of the difference in our lifestyles. They don't mean to. It's just the way it is with some. But to discount testimony instead of being interested in testimony and being a part of it is the way you break the chain and not live based upon the interests of legacy and lineage and community. There is no community without respect of the elders and legacy and lineage. There is no community. You don't respect community. What you have are a bunch of people who are really just truly interested in building their riches. Their power, their net worth. Or they are complacent and they're happy in their complacency. Don't let this be true for you. When you get around an elder, you want to ask about their path. Because God does not put older people in your path for the purpose of you calling them by their first name. You know, older people in your path for a purpose. I am being as tender with this as I possibly can. Because until we learn how to not just love each other, but respect one another, the enemy or the world system or whatever you want to call it will continue to separate us. And we will not be able to build something which is good. That's impossible. The kingdom of heaven will be ushered in. But your ability to be a part of that process will be limited until you understand the importance of respecting the elders. CashApp $TheMrPaulDozier, CashApp $TheMrPaulDozier, or Zelle, paulcdozier@gmail.com. If these videos and podcasts are a blessing to you, if they benefit you in any way, please like and share them with others, contribute, purchase the books on Amazon. I would appreciate it. And thank you for taking this journey to usher in the kingdom of heaven.